Look at this show. The designs are so cute. So I decided to make something from it. As usual, to begin this process, I begin by mixing all of the colors that I'm going to need throughout this entire project. And mostly for this one, it's just the colors for the first part of the project, but still. I begin by making a body out of white clay and then pinching out a small white ball-shaped tail. Once I have this ovular shape for the body as well as the ball tail, I begin pinching out little cylinders for the legs. Once these cylinders are fully shaped out and the rough size that I want the legs to be, I can then attach them to the bottom of the body and blend them into the main body piece. Since there are 2 legs on this creature, I make 2 legs because, well, I want this to be accurate. And once these are fully blended in without leaving any seam or gap, I can then push the bottom of the leg down in order to get the proper shape. This proper shape, of course, being larger at the bottom and then at the top. And at this point is where I bulk out the center of the body because it needed to be a bit bulkier. This gets blended in all over because I don't want any obvious seams across any part of the body, and since I now have enough clay on the top part of the body, I add little stubs for the arms so that it's easier to attach them later being now, which is basically they're just shorter versions of the cylinders on the legs that get attached to the little arm stubs, and yeah, that's pretty much everything for the arms. Once these arms get fully blended into the rest of the body without leaving any obvious seam or gap, I can then work on pinching out small thumbs into the arms because, well, these are hands, not arms. Well, they're both hands and arms, but that doesn't matter. That's besides the point. I then make sure that all of this is proper, good, and then start working on the head. The head starts out as just a very large ball of pink that then gets 2 ears pushed out of the top. These ears are just kind of smushed and squished and everything until they're 2 large cylinders coming out of the top of the head. Once these 2 cylinders are done, I can attach the ball onto the top of the body, make a little spot for the rest of the head to go, well, the face more obviously, like any of my balloons projects, and then I squish in a little ball of white clay into the front part to act as the actual face. I added a little more white here to extend the face out slightly and make it look more accurate to the design I'm working with. And then after that, I just make this into a sitting position because, well, it was going to be more stable this way, and I felt I could make it a little bit better. After this, I add the lip to the little, I don't know what this is, probably a hat, maybe skin, I don't know, and then blend it around into the rest of the pink area, making the rough shape of My Melody before, well, working on other things, because I don't do the face for a very long time. After that's all blended in, I make the shape of the ears into the proper actual shape of the design, with 1 ear being bent down and 1 straight up. After I have the ears in the correct position, I then work on making the bow tie on one of the ears. I made this bow tie blue, but there's likely several different colors that you could have made it, based on how you felt. This bow is just a ball in the middle, with 2 little heart shapes coming out on either side. They then all get blended together into a single shape before getting pushed onto one of the ears. Once that's done, I can then work on the bottom part of the paw. I'm saying paw because it has a paw print on the bottom. This is just a bunch of pink with 1 large circular pink ball at the bottom and 3 spread out in the upper section. This is all the same color at the top. And yeah, after that I begin work on the face, starting with a yellowish nose, followed by a black, thin smile that gets pushed on there, but I apparently forgot to put on screen. And then 2 simple black dots for the eyes. My favorite design for eyes. Once those eyes get on there, there's only one more thing that I really have to do, and that's one thing that I forgot to do earlier. And that, of course, is the little bottom part of the hat, which meant that I had to rip the head off before adding a flat sheet of the pink across the entire neck area. And then I just had to put the head back on, except I had to basically squish all of the white areas at the bottom over so that it didn't show. And yeah, with that, basically everything that I could ever wish for with this project is half done because there's one more. The next character that I decided to make is obviously going to be Kuromi. And you know that because you clicked on this video and it's 100% going to be in the title and or thumbnail. This starts off the exact same way as My Melody did, except just slightly different because I actually pinched out the legs from the body instead of adding them later. After I have all the legs and body, I then work on adding whatever this is, which is obviously the arms, and if anyone was confused about that, I don't know what to tell you. However, these arms don't get attached just yet, but they do have just cylinders with the pinched out thumbs. I, of course, shorten these to the proper size and only add one of them. However, this one doesn't even get blent in. And if you've ever seen Kuromi, I need a lot of black, and clearly you have because of the opening of this video. However, before working on the head or the neck portion, I begin with the tail, which is a simple devil tail. Basically, what that just means is that it's a long cylindrical tail with a big triangle at the top. This gets added to the rear end before I begin work on the neck thing area. I don't know what to call it, but like, you know, the bottom part of the little hat. Because I forgot last time, and this time I'm remembering, so I'm doing it before adding the head, and it's just a long black spiky piece of clay that is flattened, and then attached around the neck and blend together in the front, because there's no obvious seam in the front, at least. So, yeah. I don't think all of the spikes on here are at the proper location, but that's fine. After I have that, I make a large circle of black clay before imprinting out a little hole to add the white clay, similar to My Melody, as well as every balloons project I've ever done. After I have that white piece in the front of the head, I then wrap a little piece of clay around to get the proper mask, hat, face design that Kuromi has. And once this is blended into the black, yeah, that's basically all you gotta do. And then you got the rough shape of Kuromi, except the ears. And the ears, of course, are little balls at the top, and then just triangles at the bottom, except the bottom is basically the entire thing. So yeah, just shape out little triangles and balls at the top, blend them into the head, because that's what I'm doing here, and then just repeat that all over again because there's two of them. These are pretty much the ears, like how there were bunny ears on My Melody. Once I get both of these blend into the mask or head or hair or whatever, I don't know the lore, I begin to just put that on the head and work on the next part, which is just the skull that is on the middle of the mask. The skull in this case is pink because that's the design from the show, and I just get a circle, well, oval, pinch out the bottom, cut out some teeth, and then punch out some eyes. Once I have all of that done, I can then add that to the center part of the mask before, since I've currently been using the pink, making some balls to add to the tips of the triangles on the bottom part of the mask hair head thing. And once I get every single tip of the triangles covered in the pink ball, I can then begin work on the face. The face has a pink nose, followed by the open mouth, probably. I'm doing the eyes here. The eyes have eyelashes, so just make it the same black circle as before, except pinch out little eyelashes for both eyes. There's two on this. It's kind of annoying at this small scale, and I'm not very good at making eyelashes, especially at this scale, and I probably should have used a different method, but that's fine. And now here's where I make the mouth, which is just a half circle of black with a half circle of white on top, and then a very small worm of black clay made to separate out all of the teeth. This is then smushed into a good shape for the area, and then once it's placed down onto the face, I can then push it down onto the head, and then once it's pushed down onto the head, I can then add the final arm, put it over the mouth because that's where I wanted to put it, because that was what the poster design was, and then I make Kuromi sit as well because, well, balance reasons. The tail fell out at some point, so I put that back, and then with that, it's just done, like everything. Yeah.